Historic moment as President Uhuru Kenyatta and ODM leader Raila Odinga led the country in the launch of the final Building Bridges Initiative report at the Bomas of Kenya, Nairobi, with promises of superlicious and elevated discussions on the technical aspects of the report. The Bomas session was characterized with humor and light blues, from wrong biblical citations, rare harmony of nemesis Raila Odinga and Deputy President William Ruto, to Uhuru's free pass for another wife. Now, Bomas was all interesting. A holiday sort of, maybe declared by Baba, as Kotubo Satwoli would put it. So today we advance on the conversation from the events of yesterday as we talk the space of women in the world of technology and innovation. Welcome on board. This is Morning Cafe. My name is Linda Alela. It is always a pleasure to have you joining us every morning, that is Monday to Friday, as we take you through what is happening on the world of news. That is where we always start from, and we have so much, of course, in store for you. Important that you're part and parcel of the show. Hashtag Morning Cafe at Linda_Alela. Now let's kickstart by taking a look at what my team prepared. Of course, technically everything was all about the BBI, and indeed the BBI report has been launched officially, as various leaders insisting that report is aimed at uniting Kenyans. President Uhuru Kenyatta, who led the ceremony, say that he has kept his deputy William Ruto abreast of the whole process of BBI, unlike what Ruto suggested in his campaigns, urging leaders to shun incitement politics. Now, as Elizabeth Mutuko reports, politics took the center stage in the BBI ceremony at the Bomas of Kenya.
Politics took the center stage at the launch of the BBI report at the Bomas of Kenya, with President Uhuru Kenyatta revealing that he kept his deputy William Ruto informed of the whole BBI process, unlike what the DP displayed in his day-to-day public rallies, the president urging Kenyans to support him in the BBI process, which he claims will unite the nation.
I also want to thank my deputy president, because all in all, along that path, I kept him abreast of what was going on. He was part and parcel.
Further, the head of state warning leaders of incitements which might plug the country into anarchy.
Mheshimiwa Kalonzo Musyoka, Mheshimiwa Mudavadi, Mheshimiwa Wetangula, wote na nawashukuru, na ndipo namshukuru hata sasa upande yetu ya Jubilee namshukuru kwa sababu tulisonga pamoja hapa katikati, ndio sasa 2022 ikaanza kuwa inapita.
The Deputy President William Ruto declared his support for the BBI report, albeit with reservations, challenging the leaders to amend some of the contentious clauses in the BBI report.
How fair will be a league where the referee is appointed by teams? And not all the teams, some teams. How fair will this league be? If you persuade me that you will end up with a fair game, fine. That's what I'm saying.
The ODM boss Raila Odinga defended himself on being on the ballot come 2022, saying the BBI report is all about uniting Kenyans and inclusivity for future generations.
Talk together, let us not talk at each other, but let us talk to each other. Because Kenya is bigger than all of us. And me and President Uhuru Kenyatta, when we talked, we said we want to bequeath a better society for the coming generation of our country. It is not about making Uhuru Kenyatta a prime minister or Raila Odinga a president. And Raila Odinga has never declared.
Raila's sentiments were echoed by Wiper leader Kalonzo Musyoka, who urged leaders to embrace each other in respect. The Wiper leader opines that Kenya can hold an uncontested referendum.
Beautiful territory, beautiful country. But then we radicalize a youth, so they look at you, a youth looked at me and said, Kalonzo, we welcome you. Karibu sana. At least somebody has brought us a wheelbarrow. What have you brought us? Even I'm saying the wheelbarrows are important to this country. It is important. Therefore, let us embrace this possibility, God-given opportunity to have a non-contested referendum.
The BBI report already launched now. Battle lines are drawn, and on whether it will be amended as recommended by various leaders, including the Deputy President William Ruto, is a matter of time. Elizabeth Mutuku, TV47, Bomas of Kenya, Nairobi.
Politics of hustlers was the hallmark of the official launch of the BBI report at the Bomas of Kenya. Deputy President William Ruto responding to critics over his wheelbarrow donations, as well as insisting that the BBI report will not in any way help the common man. Mwangi Maina reports.
Bishop David Oginde was the first to mention the word hustler as he urged politicians to come together ahead of the 22 polls. The debate would further mutate, with several speakers chiding Deputy President William Ruto over his wheelbarrow donations.
We've seen some of them who are parading inventions that happened during the 16th century of a one-wheel machine. And we are telling them this morning that the 16th century inventions cannot be used to solve the challenges of the 21st century.
Small handouts coming from leaders has no place in this country.
He was referring to me and this wheelbarrow. Sindio?
Kotu Secretary General Francis Atwoli would worsen the situation with sentiments not kind to the Deputy President, Wiper Party leader Kalonzo Musyoka, alluding that youths are being radicalized to always expect goodies from politicians.
Tusielekeze watoto wetu kwa mambo ya zamani. The world is changing fast and we need na tunapeleka watoto kwa shule. Na unataka mtoto yako akitoka kwa shule afunge tai.
But a youth looked at me and said, Kalonzo, we welcome you. Karibu sana. At least somebody has brought us a wheelbarrow. What have you brought us?
ODM leader Raila Odinga saying the Deputy President should focus on the Jubilee Big Four agenda, but not running away from the failings of the government.
Naambia sisi vile mtafanya 2022. Sasa hivi fanyeni sasa mnulize kwanza. Nikasema mosmos tutafika tu.
But in a quick rejoinder, the Deputy President did not spare any of his critics. He insisted that the wheelbarrows and carts mean a lot to the unemployed.
A 16th century tool called the wheelbarrow, millions of citizens in the 21st century are still dependent on the wheelbarrow and mokokoteni. That is the discussion we need to have.
Ruto insisting that the BBI report will not in any way solve the problems of the millions of unemployed Kenyans.
We must have a candid, open discussion on inclusivity about the millions of Kenyans locked out by poverty and unemployment. We must discuss how they are going to be part of the Kenyan society.
Ruto insisting that he is a spokesman of the millions of unemployed young people.
The well-calculated and timely hustlers narrative during the official launch of the BBI report has set the ground for a bruising battle between the reggae proponents and the hustlers narrative proponents. Mwangi Maina, TV47, Nairobi.
Well, for the very first time since the launch of the BBI report last week, Deputy President William Ruto made his recommendations regarding the changes he wishes to see in the report. DP Ruto, while being jeered at the Bomas, emphasized on the need to thoroughly go through the report to eradicate amendments that will not be of help to Kenyans.
Addressing the crowd at the Bomas of Kenya during the launch of the BBI report, Deputy President William Ruto highlighted inaccuracies of the proposed amendments to the Constitution. Giving an example of a football league, Ruto criticized the proposal to have IEBC commissioners picked by political parties, saying the election will be unfair as only a few parties will be involved.
How fair will be a league where the referee is appointed by teams. And not all the teams, some teams. How fair will this league be? If you persuade me that you will end up with a fair game, fine. That's what I'm saying.
At the same time, DP Ruto said the proposed creation of an independent office of the Judiciary Ombudsman is a derogation of the independence of the judiciary.
We must be careful. We must be careful about the independence of institutions. We are coming from a history where judges received telephone calls, where courts were held at night. We do not want to go there.
Defending himself on the position of the hustler wheelbarrow, which followed with heckling from the crowd, DP Ruto dismissed Alex Matere's utterances. Matere, who spoke on behalf of the youths, claimed that the 16th century invention cannot be used to solve the 21st century problems.
A 16th century tool called the wheelbarrow, millions of citizens in the 21st century are still dependent on the wheelbarrow and mokokoteni. We must have a candid, open discussion on inclusivity about the millions of Kenyans locked out by poverty and unemployment. We must discuss how they are going to be part of the Kenyan society. That discussion we must have.
The DP also poked holes in the inclusivity narrative propagated by proponents of the BBI, and the crowd did not take it lightly. Nanok Lauren, TV 47.
Leaders drawn from across the country arrived at the Bomas of Kenya to witness the unveiling of the final BBI report. A majority of them throwing caution to the wind on social distancing measures amid the coronavirus pandemic. Most of DP Ruto's stalwarts conspicuously missing in action.
By the time the president was making his entrance, the Bomas of Kenya was already full to capacity. COVID-19 prevention protocols had been put in place, including arrangement of seats as per the guidelines, but that rule was quickly forgotten. Unlike last year's launch, DP Ruto's diehards were nowhere to be seen, the chants from the crowd suggesting that the majority present were President Kenyatta's supporters and ODM boss Raila Odinga.
That is the discussion we need to have. Yes. That is the discussion we need to have.
To break the tension, some of the speakers did not shy away from humorously making fun of President Uhuru Kenyatta's recent remarks in Kisumu County.
Na nikasikia ukisema unatafuta mpango wa kando. Najua mama alikubali. Babangu Raila yuko hapa, ako tayari kuchukua mahari. Na ndugu yangu hapa, Deputy President, akikubali atakuwa best man. Sasa, na mama wa taifa, tutaendelea kubuild bridges pamoja.
Don't fall into the trap, Mr. President, on your birthday that was given by Mailana Jr., student of law at the University of Nairobi, taking you very seriously on what you said in Kisumu.
Lakini niseme, masikia Kalonzo akiongea hapo ya kwamba sijui kuna marriage act. Lakini ile nilishika ni apogisho kuniambia kuna ukurasa Biblia ambaye inasema inawezekana. Nataka
And maybe all is not lost for the Jubilee Party if the greetings witnessed between President Kenyatta and his deputy William Ruto are anything to go by.
Tusimame sote sasa kwa wimbo wa taifa.
The cat is finally out of the bag, with some leaders for and against the report using all manner of tactics to put across their submissions regarding the BBI document. Mumbi Chege for TV47 at Bomas of Kenya, Nairobi.
Well, it is Baby Pendo's parents' prayer that Kenyans will not engage in violence after elections. The parents, who are among invited guests at the launch of the BBI report, want their daughter's blood to be the last that will be shed as a result of politics. Samantha Pendo was killed by a police officer after the 2017 general election. Sharon Baranga with the story.
Among the invited guests who had the opportunity to speak during the launch of the BBI report were Joseph Abanja and Lexa Achieng.
Kwa majina naitwa Joseph Abanja, mimi ndo babake Pendo.
Parents to Samantha Pendo, popularly known as Baby Pendo. The 6-month-old baby was killed by a police officer after the 2017 general election, leading to a number of non-governmental organizations and people calling for justice for Baby Pendo.
Wakati uchaguzi mwezi wa 8 2017, a flower was uprooted from my garden and it can never be replaced. I can be given another person but not the same person like Pendo.
Wakenya tuko watu wazuri. Tusidanganyane hapa ati siasa hivi ikifika saa ya nini matusi pale mtu anakuja na kumalizia sira na huko kwa hapo.
And the parents have one prayer.
Tusonge mbele, tusiuane, tusimwagi damu tena. Wacha damu ya mwanangu ndiko ya mwisho. Kuwatika election kumwagika tena. Wacha damu ya mwanangu ndiko ya mwisho.
Kwa wanasiasa, sisi wana Kenya, mkikuja kwetu, muuze siara zenyu, tupige debe, wale wenye tujashinda, tukubaliane na mwenye ameshinda, tusongeshe Kenya yetu mbele. Ikuwe mwisho kwa kitinyi ilitendeka 2017, mwanamke yoyote asilie mtoto wake na familia yoyote isilie mtu wake.
3 years after the death of Baby Pendo, her parents intimated what almost every victim of post-election violence talks about. They feel neglected.
Na Mheshimiwa Rais, kumbuka familia ya Baby Pendo. Msituache hivyo sana bwana. Mmetuacha tunateseka bwana. Asanteni.
Wale ambao wamepoteza mali yao kule Molo. Wazazi wetu hapa walipoteza mtoto yao kwa sababu ya siasa. Vile mama Pendo ametuambia hapa. Wacha hiyo iwe ya mwisho. Wacha hiyo iwe ya mwisho.
Baby Pendo's story brought out the ugly side of politics during the launch of the BBI report. Now, Kenyans have the responsibility to ensure they read the document and decide whether they want to adopt it or not.
BBI hii itapita jameni ama mnaonaje? Itapita jameni? Mutapitisha?
Sharon Baranga, TV47.
Wa Kenya ni kwa nini tunataka kupitisha document hii?
And even as the nation launched the BBI report at the Bomas of Kenya, President Uhuru Kenyatta celebrated his birthday. The launch of the report was seen as a birthday gift by many as the head of state turned 59 years. So was it a coincidence that another national event coincided with the president's birthday? Andrew Kilemi reports.
October 26, 2017, millions of President Uhuru Kenyatta's supporters turned out to gift him in the form of a re-election after the Supreme Court nullified the August 8th presidential election. 3 years later, President Kenyatta received another gift, a BBI gift whose launch took place Monday at the Bomas of Kenya. This was evident even as Kenyans present at the launch burst out singing hymns and songs to celebrate the head of state's birthday. Different from 2017, his biggest opposition is now one of his closest buddies. ODM leader Raila Odinga, who opted out of the repeat polls in 2017, was seated right next to the head of state, all smiles.
This historic day, katika ukumbi wa Bomas, on a day when you are born and you are celebrating your birthday. Happy birthday, Your Excellency.
Don't fall into the trap, Mr. President, on your birthday that was given by my Lina Junior, student of law at the University of Nairobi, taking you very seriously on what you said in Kisumu.
Nataka kushow birthday boy unye na rao ya kwamba na mabazu wengine wako hapo wote ya kwamba sisi, especially the young people in this country, tunataka Kenya ambayo tunaendelea kuchochwa saa zote.
On the social media platforms, Deputy President William Ruto nominated Senator Millicent Omanga and Elgeyo Marakwet Senator Kipchumba Murkomen were among other Kenyans who wished President Kenyatta a happy birthday. Andrin Kilemi, TV47, Nairobi.
Well, away from BBI to a rather sad story. Tononoka Secondary School Principal Mohammed Hamis was buried yesterday afternoon after succumbing to COVID-19 earlier in the day. Now his death comes days after the school was closed indefinitely following reports of COVID-19 spread last week. And as Mariam Mocharo reports, 18 people succumbed to COVID-19 as of yesterday's address.
Mohammed Hamis, the Tononoka High School principal, had been hospitalized at the Coast General Hospital for 5 days before he succumbed to COVID-19 on Monday and was later buried at the Kikoani Muslim Cemetery. Learning in both Tononoka and Star of the Sea secondary schools was suspended last week after 15 teachers tested positive for COVID-19. Mombasa County Commissioner Gilbert Kitiyo confirmed that 11 teachers from Tononoka High School and 4 others from Mamangina High School have tested positive for the virus. However, learning at Mamangina High School is still ongoing.
Tuko na shule mbili ambazo ni kweli tumepata mambo ya maambukizi. Hiyo ni Tononoka, shule ya Tononoka na shule ya Star of the Sea High School. Kumekuwa na cases ya positive ya corona na hizo shule pia zikafungwa.
The county commissioner expressed concern over disregard of COVID-19 containment protocols by both citizens and politicians, even as the numbers of the new COVID-19 infections keep rising.
Mwezi wa Agosti ikawa 335. Mwezi wa Septemba ukaanza kwenda juu, ikawa ni 451. Na mwezi wa Oktoba kufikia tarehe 17 tayari tulikuwa na cases 528 na mwezi haujaisha. Kwa hivyo hiyo inamaanisha kwamba tayari hizi cases zinaanza kwenda juu. Na ile ripoti ambayo tuko nayo kupitia kwa wale wataalamu wetu wa kiafya ni kwamba saa hizi katika Mombasa kupata ile kitanda ya emergency wakati huu imekuwa ngumu.
Mohammed Hamis is among 18 people who succumbed to COVID-19 on Monday, bringing the national death to 920 people. On Monday, 276 more people tested positive to the virus, bringing the national COVID-19 caseload to 49,997 people. Mariam Mwacharo, TV47, Mombasa County.
And from that, it is time now that we take a short break as we cross over to Martha's newspaper.
Ya mgambo subira yako hatimaye imekutaheri.
We promised and we have delivered. Guess what?
TV47 tunakuja tunatunda ndani on DSTV on DSTV channel 268. Ya mgambo ikilia kuna jambo. Subira yako hatimaye imekutaheri.
We promised and we
the university takes pride in being an academic giant with some of the best infrastructure, imparting knowledge to the best brains in the country and the region. Our members of faculty are keen to deliver market-driven programs in science and humanities with a keen focus on linkages with relevant organizations. We admit both self-sponsored and government-sponsored students under the Kenya Universities and Colleges Central Placement Service. Join us today, Mount Kenya University, channel 268. Infinite possibilities.
Subira yako hatimaye imefika heri.
And we bring you all the big names in education sector, from policymakers to civil society, from earth-shaking interviews to deep features.
Channel
And
268.
now, a trusted name in education television reporting.
Subira yako hatimaye
Are your
imefika
children
heri.
safe? Are they learning? Are teachers in class? Are parents happy?
Join me for the untold stories right from early childhood development education to institutions
Channel
of higher learning.
268.
This and more only on TV47.
Subira yako hatimaye imefika heri.
We promised and we have delivered.
TV47 tunakuja tunadunda ndani
on DSTV.
DSTV
On DSTV.
Channel 268. Subira yako hatimaye imefika heri.
Sasa ule mlima ambao ungeamini ndio huu. TV47 dunda ndani mazindika kuangamizwa na tungekuwa na mazindika mpaka sasa tungekuwa kwa kama wasi kuna
Channel 268.
mazindika si ndio nzuri leo.
Subira yako hatimaye imefika heri.
TV47
nimekuwa Redman,
tunadunda ndani,
lakini ukweli ni kwamba kuna jambo lililotokea na mpaka leo hapa panajulikana kama
268.
yani mahali ambapo kuna maram.
Subira yako hatimaye
This is the home of untold stories.
TV47 tunakuja tunadunda ndani
On DSTV.
DSTV
On DSTV.
Channel 268. Subira yako imefika heri.
We promised and we have delivered.
Ya mgambo ikilia kuna jambo.
Subira yako hatimaye imefika heri.
We promised and we have delivered. Welcome back to the broadcast. As we await the guest of the day, it is now time that we take a look at what is there on the newspapers. We'll kickstart on what is on the front page of the Standard newspaper. It's more or less of yesterday's events and moment of truth, as confessions are out there, humor is out there, blows is out there in regards to the BBI. And as of the confessions, President Uhuru Kenyatta reveals that he's been involving his DP on technically all the processes of the BBI. He's consulted him on who, of course, he should put on the task force, and the DP, in a huge way, sort of decided some of the characters that, or some of the figures that were in the 14-member team. Uhuru reveals that Ruto knew about handshake, says tribalism and idle youth are time bomb. And of course, DP makes case against the BBI. And Right Honorable Raila Odinga says it's game on for the BBI. These are stories that are captured from page 3 all the way to page 10 of the Standard newspaper. And numerous of leaders coming out to celebrate the BBI report, while others are out there to argue that maybe, well, or to be precise, Deputy President William Ruto is the one who's come out to register what it is that he feels like would not be helpful or would not work for the people of Kenya in regards to what is enshrined within the BBI. He notes a couple of issues that to him would not come in handy towards addressing the issues, or maybe some of the issues that have been captured within the BBI that he feels are a little bit questionable in regards to how they are going to be implemented. And we also have, of course, recommendations from different leaders, as we had started by saying most of the DP foot soldiers were missing in action, probably informing why there was that so much negativity that was made upon every single statement that he was making. He comes out to criticize the judiciary's ombudsman process. He comes out to argue that it will be infringing on the rights of the IEBC. and the independence of the same, or that is the judiciary and the IBC, if at all. It's about, taking the direction that the BBI has proposed and the changes that are to be brought by the same. According to him, it will be unfair to have a referee who was selected by the team players, and not just all the team players, but actually a few of them, or a few of the teams that would be part and parcel of the league. To him, he says that it's almost impossible to have the answers to or maybe to have justice and fairness, and that probably in a huge way would alter the electoral processes that we also seek to address, or the injustices that we see on matters elections every year. He also argues that, of course, if it's about dealing with the winner takes it all, then this would not come in handy to address that particular one. And a couple of other raft issues that he brings on board, saying that, well, he is not there to counter what it is that the BBI brings on board, but he feels like, yes, as Kenyans, there's that need of a robust and inclusive conversation revolving around that. And of course, the likes of Right Honorable Raila Odinga coming out to condemn the two, or not necessarily condemn the two, but arguing that, you know what, the two should come together and work together, put their house in order to address the issues of the people of Kenya as they had promised at that point when they were taking power. Well, the better part of the time also, some bit of humor and nice moments. Uhuru's second wife joke and wrong Bible verses light up the day. Of course, Baba, with his own small paper coming out from his pocket and trying to take people through, yes, what he would term as a Bible verse towards charting the way forward for the BBI. So unlike him, but of course brought about the humor that probably many would have wanted amidst a discussion of this tense and very important document. And also Ashura Michaels carrying the day with the joke that she brought on board. But technically, an analogy to speak of what greatness the BBI would bring on board, and the BBI as the baby that would be born between her, and the president. So, well, there was so much so in regards to the same, and of course, the argument or the talk or the conversation is to whether indeed the people of Kenya sort of deem or look at the BBI as a document that would come in handy to address the issues that continue to bedevil us. A majority of youths out there celebrating this document, business people came out to celebrate this particular document. We saw women celebrating the document, yes, persons with disability equally celebrating the documents to them. It felt like it was a new dawn, and if these conversations or these proposals that are within the BBI are to be looked into, then they would come in handy to address these particular issues that we are referring to. Day of Confessions as BBI report launched. That is on page 4 and page 5. The numerous leaders that had a chance to speak in regards to this crucial document are lined out there, and their take on the same. Remember, President Uhuru Kenyatta maintaining that inclusivity is all we want at this point of dealing with the BBI, while others also came out to argue that, well, as a country, there is need for us to look into the issue of COVID-19, which continues to bedevil us or continues to cause trouble at this point, where we still continue to struggle with that. And it's not just in the country, but it is a global affair. So quite to note that there's a sad story right here that has been captured on the front page, that head of school hit by COVID-19 and passed on. That is the principal of Tononoka High School. That's pretty much unfortunate. It's a story that has been captured on page 2 of the Standard newspaper, and the principal of COVID-19 hit schools dies, and this is pretty much unfortunate, even as the Ministry of Health maintains that the numbers continue to surge, and there's that clarion call that we all come together towards ensuring that we maintain the measures that are put on board by the Health Ministry in regards to dealing with COVID-19. Sad to note is that even with the story that we have carried is that, well, yesterday, the 6,000 people who were on standby or who were at the Bomas really did not so much so care about the aspect of social distancing and, ensuring that they have their masks on and, just abiding by the principles and the measures that have been set towards dealing with COVID-19. So This is technically what has been happening, of course, and we already have Frank Anyona, who's the guest of the day, to help us, ponder some more on his take on these stories that have been captured. 3/4 of the newspaper, all the newspapers, that is the People Daily, the Standard newspaper, the Daily Nation, the Star, Nairobian Mention, are talking about the BBI, talking about the events of yesterday. Frank Anyona, what do you make of yesterday's events?
First of all, I would like to thank you for this opportunity, Linda, once more. I'd like to really begin by condemning the remarks of the Right Honorable former Prime Minister Raila Odinga.
Just a moment. I'm afraid we have some bit of hiccups with your voice or your sound as they try to fix that. I am interested. I'm eagerly waiting to hear what you have to say about that one that you wanted to say, that you are a little bit offended with the utterances of, I think, Right Honorable Raila Odinga. I would want to assume so. Or, well, we'll get to know as we proceed. And yes, Ben Githai at it again with tune praising BBI, an interesting one right there. We saw, most of the people from different walks of life, of course, gracing this particular occasion. And yes, the musicians did not fail to also represent the likes of Raftun. We all saw Ben Githai, and he now officially drops that tune on Matters BBI after giving us an interesting one on Uhuru Ruto Tano Tena. And as many would have argued, maybe, well, that was an undoing based on the difficulties that we go through as a people today. The cost of living is extremely too high for the common mwananchi, for Mama Mboga out there, for the hustlers, as the DP would rightfully put it. Hence the need for us to have this addressed. And of course, according to a majority of the people, they would argue that yes, Tano Tena brought us into so much disaster, into so much troubles as a country. So in as much as we'd want to celebrate the reign of the Jubilee Party, it is obvious and evident that it has come along with a lot of difficulties for the people of Kenya. Theatre of Kenya push for law reforms. And of course, that's a story also captured on page 5, still in regards to the BBI report that was officially unveiled to the people of Kenya. Coming to page 6 and 7, Uhuru, the deputy president, was aware of the handshake, was aware of everything that the president has been doing. Ruto makes his case against BBI report amid the jeers. I think I've touched on some of the key things that he highlighted, that he would wish a conversation revolving around the same to make some bit of adjustments, if at all the BBI is to sail through uncontested. But in the event that it sails through the way it is, or of course they proceed with it the way it is, then according to him, there are few of these clauses that he would go against, and citing his own reasons as to why he feels like some of these recommendations really would not come in to solve the issues of the people of Kenya. Raila calls for unity in the push for the reforms, and this is technically what all the leaders actually called for. The talk was on the aspect of unity, inclusivity, change for the nation. And most of the leaders came out speaking out, in unison in support of the BBI or in support of some of the recommendations that were put on board. And equally the task force, just outlining, they were the first ones to speak, giving us an outline of what exactly it is that is within the BBI, but they still insist that you can only understand if you take time to go through the document. So Frank, we have you again. And yes, I'd love to hear what you have to say.
Yes, the two, before I even comment about what happened, the BBI event, I'd like to condemn the two gentlemen, the two premiers, the Deputy President, William Ruto, and the former Prime Minister, Raila Odinga. I believe that is independent, and it's not in the business of media to be doing what yesterday I felt like they were trying to the media, or the manner in which they condemned the media was not right at all. So it's something that most Kenyans we should let media express freely anytime.
I still feel like there's some bit of funny sound. And I guess that has to be fixed again. So allow us to do that. Apologies for the same. And our story captured on page 10, like I said, the BBI has extensively been captured on the Standard newspaper, while law reform duels are all about power struggles among the elite. And this also is a conversation that has been there. Remember, the first moments when people started talking of amendments and changes within the Constitution was triggered by the feel that Kenyans are overrepresented, and the leadership is really not doing much towards ensuring that the people of Kenya are able to realize development and feel like they are well represented. And you know, the wage bill was way above what it is that Kenyans would manage, and probably making us run into debt, having a budget or that is outrageous, and also collecting revenue that has not been enough to be able to sustain our budget. And even worse is that we've run into so much debt after debt. Some of the debts that we've incurred is to service different other debts that we took. And the argument is that it is unfortunate that every other time the leaders think of changing the laws, it is always about their own respective interest, as opposed to the interest of Wanjiku, the interest of Atieno, the interest of Nafula out there. And as it is, of course, this BBI has had its fair share of condemnation in regards to whether indeed it is about the interest of the people of Kenya. While, it comes along with lots of sweetness and, lots of proposals that seem to augur well with a majority of different Kenyans, it sounds as though there's also that aspect of creating positions for the elite, creating positions for the leaders. And that's why a majority of people have come out to, in a way, point fingers at the document, arguing that if it is going to be about creation of positions for the people of Kenya, for a few individuals in the country, then really it is not a document that is worth passing. And as many would have argued, it is important that the leaders are not selfish to a point whereby they are going to treat us to this aspect of seeing them getting into power after the BBI report has been passed. Remember, the recommendations that have been presented on the 204-page document are recommendations that are supposed to be pondered upon, administrative, legislative ways of approaching it, and to see whether it should be able to sail through. Some of the recommendations would probably be passed in Parliament. Some of them will probably take us to a referendum. And the question at hand is, do we really need a referendum as of now? If it's about the hybrid systems, many have argued constitutionally there is no way that this can be incorporated as an amendment if we have not gone through an election or we've not gone through a referendum. So there are high likelihoods that we will go for a referendum. And the debate on the BBI, they say, is going to go on up until at least August there, where we will have decided whether it's a referendum or not, or whether Kenyans are going to be treated to the same. So we are waiting to see what will be the fate of the BBI. There's still so much to discuss. There's still so much to ponder on. And the document was just released the other day. So take your time to read it, as they would say, and make a decision that will be friendly, a decision that's informed on what it is that you term important and necessary that has been captured within that particular document, as opposed to listening to what it is that other people would recommend or would say on the same. Anyona, back to you.
Yes, I think briefly I wanted to say that I saw the Prime Minister and the Deputy President condemning media yesterday, and I think it's not the right direction for leaders. Let media express freely. Media, of course, they are human beings. Sometimes they make mistakes, but the mistakes that the political class has done cannot be compared with the media. So we don't want to see politicians starting to... media has played a very major role even in helping them publicize this BBI document. But yesterday it was a very wonderful event. I watched it, and I thought in my head that democracy, Kenya is really growing in terms of democracy. If somebody can stand in a place where people are not supporting him, or the audience is not in his favor, and speak even though he was heckled, that is done all over the world, even in Western nations. But there's nobody, I mean, he was able to articulate his issues very nicely. That is the direction we want as young people in this country, that we can have debates even if we have sharp or divided, sharp and divided opinions.
Yeah.
We can sit down and discuss and listen to one another. Yesterday, what happened, Linda, is that the deputy president, I think to some extent, he did a good job, and I believe most of the issues he was expressing were okay. But I only have one problem with him. For those people who are keen, the deputy president, when he started, he was saying that he probably needs some time. Additional time, and that he has not read the document. Then, to our surprise. Yes, to our surprise, when at some point he comes out and says that he starts now adding some content which should be added to the document.
Okay.
So, like me, I was surprised how come the deputy president initially was saying that he was actually saying that the document, the time given is slow, and other Kenyans should be given time to read this document, meaning that he hasn't read it.
Yeah.
So I was asking myself, if you haven't read it, how come you are now telling us what we should add and what we should remove from the document?
He says he takes time to, ponder and understand and unravel what it is that is within the document. It's not like he had not read it per se, but it would take him some time to exhaust first of all the pages and equally understand it extensively.
It's not honesty when you say that you've not read a book and then you start telling us what should be added. If you've not read, you've not read. Take your time to read the book, understand it properly, then before you comment about it. It's a very poor culture we are cultivating in this country, where a document that is going to determine the lives of our children and grandchildren is being read in, a very short time, and then we start giving opinions. When the deputy president yesterday started by saying that this document, we've not read it and we need some time, that was okay. But when he moves ahead and start telling us now, we need to add these and remove this, how you just said you didn't read it. So anyway, all that aside, I would want to say that regarding this document, Linda, let us take our time.
Yeah.
Let us take our time. Let us really try very hard to read this document and understand it before we pass it, or before we think of passing it.
Yeah.
Because this is a document that is so critical, that is going to determine the lives of our people in the next even 50 years. Constitutions can stay even 100 years. If we are going to follow the pace that is being set by the political class, then it means we as the citizens, we are going to lose control of this country. We need to take control. That is the reason why we go to vote. We need to take control of these leaders, and in any case, leaders who give lies and who do not appear like they can deliver something, they should be kicked out from government as soon as possible.
Wow, interesting. And still on the Standard newspaper, page 12, surge in COVID-19 cases put strain on hospitals. That will bring us to the People Daily, page 1-2. On the front page, they say principal succumbs to COVID-19. That is Tononoka Boys, a head teacher, who together with 10 other teachers and students were diagnosed with the virus, died after days in intensive care units. And of course, we have 276 cases that were recorded positive as of yesterday, from a sample of 2,126. And we're also talking about the cases, or the caseload, standing at 49,997 since the first case was reported. Recoveries stand at 34,429, and we have 920 deaths so far. and the entire number of people who've been tested stands at 662,046. Anyona.
Yes, Linda, I think we've been on this show discussing about this issue of COVID, and at some point we were even saying that schools should not open. I really do not know why the rush. I mean, it doesn't even make sense that you are opening schools in October, mid-October, so that students can stay in school November and December, they close and they come back in January. I think if it were really me, I would consider the schools to be opened in January, because it doesn't really make a difference, or even January would be better, because you can see countries like Italy, there's a second round of COVID that is coming. I don't really understand how Professor Magoha is running this ministry. Initially, I thought that he would do the best job, but unfortunately, he has disappointed of all the cabinet secretaries or ministers who have been in that docket. So on the issue of schools reopening, I'm totally against the idea that Professor Magoha thought, because it's like using our kids like experiment kits, so that if you see a principal dying in the line of duty, it means that even the school children will be affected to this. There's no rush. Once you lose a life, you can waste 1 year and do the exam next year, but once you lose a life, there's no coming back.
Well, okay, that's unfortunate. We wait to see what will happen. But on matters graft, Madeira Member of Parliament Gachagua arrested over 12.5 billion fraud claims. A story captured on page 13. Yes, even as we deal with COVID-19, we're still dealing with graft. Anyona, to you.
Yes, still on graft. Yes. I think we've had on the issue of corruption issues. That is a very serious issue, which as I told you in the beginning of this show, I haven't gotten the time to completely read the BBI document, and I'm hoping that issues of corruption will be addressed in the document sufficiently, because even presidents of other countries, Obama was here, he said corruption is the main challenge that Kenya is facing, and if we deal with it, then it means that this country will be economically and every other aspect will be ahead of others. So I think I'm hoping, I haven't read the document, to be honest, I haven't completely read it, but I'm hoping that the document will address issues of corruption entirely, because even the anti-corruption body as at now, Linda, it seems like it's a toothless dog. There are very many cases that we've had being talked about in the media, some of which, most of the cases in this country, by the way, they are uncovered by media. So sometimes you get surprised, like media is playing the role of EACC and DCI at the same place. So I think issues of corruption, we should strengthen our institutions by giving them their independence and choosing the right people to head those institutions, so that we can deal with this menace once and for all. Okay, well, thank you so much, Frank Anyona, for your insights right here on the newspaper. Government raises alarm over quality of death supplied. That also is a story that has been captured on page 2. So much so in the newspapers, you can always grab your copy and get to learn and equally understand some more on what has been captured. On that note, we take a short break. We'll be right back at exactly 7 with more on the BBI and the events of yesterday, a show that you certainly do not want to miss out.
Subira yako hatimaye inastahili.
We promised and we have delivered. That's what
TV47 tunakuja, tunadunda ndani DSTV on DSTV
Channel 268.
ya mgambo ikilia kuna jambo.
Subira yako hatimaye imekutaheri.
Sona moja imetengenezwa kwa njia spesheli ili kupambana na maumivu kwa haraka. Sona moja ina aspirin kama kiungo. Sona moja, kitulizo kamili. Maumivu ya kizidi. Channel 268.
Ya mgambo ikilia kuna jambo.
Homepoint Investments Limited introduces to you a new mega project named Homepoint Royal Gardens at Mwingi. The project is along Thika Garissa Highway. 50 by 100 plots go for 80,000 Kenya shillings and an acre is only 400,000 shillings. If you happen to be among the first 50 buyers, you will get 25% discount, which means you will end up buying at a price of 55,000 only. Booking is 20,000 only. The plots are in a good serenity, which favors various investments like rentals, residential homes, and also farming. Water and electricity are available. They are next to Chinese Gypsum Factory and Enzio Shopping Center. Site visit is every Wednesday and Saturday. For more information, call us on 0797 312151 or 0727 426015 or visit our offices at Twiru Town,
Channel
Itoma Plaza,
268.
room number K6, Homepoint Investments Limited, your best investment partner.
We promised and we have delivered. Guess what?
TV47 tunakuja tunadunda ndani
on DSTV.
DSTV
on DSTV.
Channel 268.
Ya mgambo
kwanza nakaja.
Subira yako hatimaye imekutaheri.
TV47 tunakuja tunadunda ndani on DSTV
on DSTV.
Channel 268.
Mkate ni select.
Subira yako hatimaye
Mount Kenya University takes pride in being an academic giant with some of the best infrastructure, imparting knowledge to the best brains in the country and the region. Our members of faculty are keen to deliver market-driven programs in science and humanities with a keen focus on linkages with relevant organizations. We admit both self-sponsored and government-sponsored students under the Kenya Universities and Colleges Central Placement Service. Join us today, Mount Kenya University, unlocking
Channel 268.
Je, maumivu ya kichwa na kukosesha amani? Kaluma Strong hutuliza maumivu ya kichwa, maumivu ya mwili na hata huondoa joto jingi mwilini. Kaluma Strong ina aspirin kama kiungo. Maumivu yakizidi, muone daktari.
Channel 268.
Ya mgambo
subira yako hatimaye imekutaheri.
We promised and we have delivered. Guess what?
TV47 tunakuja tunadunda ndani
on DSTV.
DSTV
on DSTV.
Channel 268.
Ya mgambo
subira yako hatimaye imekutaheri.
We promised and we have delivered. Guess what?
TV47 tunakuja tunadunda ndani
on DSTV.
DSTV
on DSTV.
Channel 268.
Ya mgambo
subira yako hatimaye imekutaheri.
We promised and we have delivered. Guess what?
TV47 tunakuja tunadunda ndani on DSTV
on DSTV.
Channel 268.
Ya mgambo ikilia kuna jambo.
Subira yako hatimaye imekutaheri.
We promised and we have delivered. Guess what?
TV47 tunakuja tunadunda ndani
on DSTV.
It was a gracious day, a historical event for the country. But the biggest question is just how much will this culminate to ensuring that the lives of the people of Kenya are transformed, and not just transformed to be better. And I think that is the conversation that is ongoing, the conversation that we'll be having for the next about 6 months or so, as we decide on whether we're going to make amendments on the Constitution or not, whether it's necessary or not, whether the interest of every other Kenyan will be captured on this particular document. And yes, the document is out there for you to read. As everyone else would say, Long gone are the days where we'd say somebody else has read the document for me. And sadly, and I think I note this, that the conversation is on that Baba has read the document. So we really do not need to read the document. No, no, no. I think we are an advanced lot. As a people of Kenya, we are now, open and, awake to the importance of understanding what it is, that is being made as a decision in regards to the changes that we need as a people. So you need to be actively involved. You got no reason whatsoever to say that this is for somebody else to get to know what is happening or not. And for that reason, we'll be having a very good conversation this morning as we take a look at what happened yesterday, at what groups have been captured, what has not been captured, what can be advanced on this particular document that we have as at now. Yesterday's events, and we saw very many people celebrating this and arguing that, it is a good document right at Bomas. But yes, the DP, in his own confident way, argued that there are a couple of other things that need to be looked into in regards to the proposals that were given. And according to him, this is going to be a conversation that should involve every other Kenyan, because he speaks of every other people and he speaks on behalf of the numerous hustlers that are out there. But anyway, before we get into the discussion, let's first of all pick the light moments. I mean, it's always good to celebrate the beautiful and the light moments that made the day interesting.
Na nikasikia ukisema unatafuta mpango wa kando. Najua mama alikubali. Babangu Raila yuko hapa, ako tayari kuchukua mahari, na ndugu yangu hapa Deputy President akikubali atakuwa best man. Sasa na mama wa taifa tutaendelea kubuild bridges pamoja.
Don't fall into the trap, Mr. President, on your birthday that was given by Mailane Jr., a student of law at the University of Nairobi, taking you very seriously on what you said in Kisumu.
Lakini niseme, masikia Kalonzo akiongea hapo ya kwamba sijui kuna marriage act. Lakini ile nilishika ni apogisho kuniambia kuna ukurasa Biblia ambaye inasema inawezekana. Nataka
Well, and of course, we still recap on the same. Those were interesting moments. We also take a look at those emotional conversations that were had yesterday, in regards to bringing us as Kenyans to that moment of, thinking and pondering and understanding the importance of peace, the importance of inclusivity, the importance of being sensitive to the feelings of other people, the importance of working together towards unity. Let's listen into what the parents of baby Pendo had to say.
Wakati uchaguzi mwezi wa 8 2017, a flower was uprooted from my garden and it can never be replaced. I can be given another person but not the same person like Pendo.
Wakenya tuko watu wazuri. Tusidanganyane hapa ati siasa hivi ikifika saa ya nini matusi pale mtu anakuja na kumalizia hasira na huko kwa hapo. Tusonge mbele, tusiuane, tusimwagi damu tena. Wacha damu ya mwanangu ndiko ya mwisho kuwatika election kumwagika tena. Wacha damu ya mwanangu ndiko ya mwisho.
Kwa wanasiasa, sisi wana Kenya, mkikuja kwetu muuze siara zenyu, tupige debe, wale wenye tujashinda tukubaliane na mwenye ameshinda, tusongeshe Kenya yetu mbele. Ikuwe mwisho kwa kitinyi ilitendeka 2017, mwanamke yoyote asilie mtoto wake na familia yoyote isilie mtu wake.
Na Mheshimiwa Rais, kumbuka familia ya Bibi Pendo. Msituache hivyo sana bwana. Mmetuacha tunateseka bwana. Asanteni.
Wale ambao wamepoteza mali yao kule Molo, wazazi wetu hapa walipoteza mtoto yao kwa sababu ya siasa. Vile Mama Pendo ametuambia hapa, wacha hiyo iwe ya mwisho.
Wacha hiyo iwe ya mwisho.
Well, we have so much that we would look into in regards to yesterday's events, but then we might not be able to get into all that. But all the same, it is only fair that we kickstart the conversation. Honorable Denita Gati joins us this morning, nominated Member of Parliament, Persons with Disabilities. It's good to have you, Mheshimiwa. And we also have Kevin Osido, who's the Executive Director, County Governance Watch, and equally governance expert. Good to have you. We're also looking forward to have the Deputy Governor, that is Kisii County. Of course, I hope he's somewhere on his way coming, or we're going to have him join us via Skype. Good to have you, ladies and gentlemen.
Thank you.
And yes, the conversation is on. I think I'll start with you, Madam Denita. Right after the report was released, and of course, there was that, feel of displeasure in regards to what has been captured within. And there was that feel that the interests of persons with disability was not addressed based on the proposals that you had given to the task force. What do you make of this as of now, looking at what the likes of Ashura said, that, you know what, Ashura wearing different caps, persons with disability, that of a woman, and that of a youth. She argues that the document is just perfect in shape. Did you guys take time to read into the document, or, it was just a blanket condemnation?
Thank you very much, Linda, once again. And really, just to say that yesterday's, conference or meeting or was one of the best.
Yes.
Obviously, as you saw, it was a very inclusive meeting that we had at Bomas, and again, so many groups, as you have mentioned, really were captured in the BBI, and one of the groups that I represent are basically persons with disabilities in the National Assembly. We wouldn't say, and let me tell you, persons with disabilities support BBI. Persons with disabilities, what they want is clear, ways of how then is this inclusion really to be actualized. Because when you look at the BBI, an extremely wonderful document. It touches on women, at least, you can see women, how women are to move to the Senate, how women are to, to be either gender, in terms of governor and, all this. And now when it comes to persons with disabilities, we have been sufficiently addressed. I mean, we have been sufficiently addressed in the report in terms of the various bills that we are working on in the Senate, in the National Assembly, in terms of probably then what persons with disabilities had wanted to basically really project is maybe then in these nominations, for example, if it is nominations, what is a slow for persons? What is a percentage? The same way women is like 47 women to go to the Senate, and then now within this this basis now, persons with disabilities, it kind of at first needed a little understanding, but again, looking at the document now, you can actually realize that we have been, captured. We have been captured. It's now about us now, also as leaders, to again guide our people, to be able to know how then are we to actualize, for example, if we have nominations in the National Assembly, what percentage of nominations really go to persons with disabilities, so that we are not, you don't fall along the cracks.
And celebrate too early.
So basically persons with disabilities were raising their concerns ahead of time. As it has always been. As it has always been that if you're not really careful, you get lost along the way.
And that is what the DP says. I mean, Kevin Osido, coming to you before we even look deeper and we weigh in our sentiments on the events of yesterday. The DP says that let's just be very careful that we do not look at this document and celebrate it, yet we've not delved deep into understanding some of the crucial and the nitty-gritties that fall within this particular proposals that have been given. I mean, is he justified to do that? Because, from yesterday, there was that feel, within that particular environment that, he was going against what it is that is a beautiful document.
Thank you so much, Linda. Two things to the DP. One is that I think it was a good moment for him to speak out. you note that this is a gentleman that has been seen to be very anti-BBI.
Right.
And you and I and several others have been here, and including other platforms, asking the DP to face His Excellency the President and the former Prime Minister.
Yeah.
Open up your heart and say what it is that you don't like about this document. And I think that was really a momentous time for him now to speak out. The second thing is, I don't think that what is said is factual.
Yeah.
The only bit which probably I think is a concern is the fact that this document now is open. Let people take time to read it, engage with it. Like Mheshimiwa has said, even persons with various disabilities engage with the document. But I think on the 4 issues, and I took notes of what he said. One was, of course, on judiciary, where he had issues with the payment issues, ombudsman, and what have you. Now, you note that the DP has been part of a government that has given us the picture of the executive and the judiciary. In fact, it began when they said we shall revisit this issue. And so I expected him to more or less come up, not to condemn blanketly what the history of the kind of relationship that the judiciary and the executive have, but to propose recommendations on what he thinks really needs to be done. Within the judiciary, there is a lot. There is a Judicial Training Institute, there is the Office of the Chief Justice himself, who works with a whole lot of a secretariat headed by Chief Registrar. Now, these are people who need to be given the opportunity to share their experiences insofar as what they have seen can be able to work or not within the premise of the recommendations of the BBI report. That's one. Number 2, the police force. I think that the DP is also putting the horse before the cart, because I think that as a member of the executive, a gentleman who sits at the National Security Council, in my view as a Kenyan, a deputy president coming out to condemn recommendations of one is not even a force, he called it a force, it's actually a service. There have been many reforms around the police service of this country, which I think the deputy president, given the kind of position that he holds, needs to be the person who will speak confidence to the Kenyans that the kind of reforms that the BBI report is proposing are reforms that are going to guarantee you a fair trial. They are going to give you your powers in accordance to Article 49 of the Constitution, that the police will not just come and arrest you arbitrarily without giving you a voice to be heard. In fact, he said that the police force needs to act independently of any politicians. Which I think is a good proposal, albeit or despite the fact that the forum, I thought, was basically for us to look at what is not working and then how do we improve it. But I think the manner in which the DP proposed it left me as a Kenyan who would probably engage with the police in a very unfair manner, asking and wondering, so what does the report have to do with me, my rights as a citizen, vis-a-vis the very powerful in the land called Kenya, because the deputy president is the second most powerful person in this great republic. The third thing which the DP had issues with was devolution. And he said 35% available and used properly. How will we guarantee that these additional resources are actually going to be used effectively? Then he said, we are downgrading the Senate while we are upgrading the National Assembly, and that the discussions around division of revenue allocation will therefore not be very effective, which I disagree with. Because from the proposals that the BBI report have made clearly, and these are proposals that both the task force and then the steering committee picked from an array of Kenyans. And Kenyans said that we wanted a governance system that would give us an opportunity to make decisions insofar as the resources that come to the people are concerned. So involve us in the decision-making processes, and that the resources that are also coming to our counties are going to be resources where we will be the people who will have the say. Now, what the deputy president probably needs to, in my view, have done was to instill the confidence. Because even governors were there, deputy governors were there, members of the county assemblies were there, so that as opposed to pouring cold water on these hot kind of recommendations, give us from your own purview, in fact from a person who also chairs what is called the CBF, County Budget and Economic Forum, which is of course comprised of governors, chief officers of finance, among others. Then give us your experience as a chairman, what is not working from a devolved perspective.
Let me be the devil's advocate.
All right.
And Honorable Gatti, I incorporate you in this as we await to, again, officially have the DG joining us. We would look at this as the DP and we probably think that he's defiant because he sits within this particular government and now he probably goes again to condemn what it is that the government has proposed. But we have constantly said that we have a beautiful document in the current constitution, that is the 2010 constitution. Many have argued that it's the best across the world, but we still have not been able to implement. We still have questions on how we're supposed to implement some of the clauses that are pretty much crucial in addressing the issues of the people, including the two-third gender rule. I mean, isn't it just fair if the DP stands and argues that, you know what, maybe we might not be able to implement this based on some little knowledge that he has within the government and what he sees with the politicians in terms of goodwill?
Linda, I think for me the DP was a bit pessimistic. He's been pessimistic, and that is what the word I would use. Because honestly, the DP and the president are one. They're one and the same thing.
Okay.
I mean, he sits in the same government that the president sits. We have the constitution. It has been the responsibility also of the executive to ensure that the constitution is, implemented. Really.
But it's democracy, Honorable Gatti. That I know you can stand and argue otherwise. Your boss says this, but you can argue otherwise. Or maybe that was not the best platform to argue.
For me, it really wasn't the best platform because when we were there. Basically, the deputy came and actually even confessed that he had not even read the BBI report.
Okay.
And then he has a raft of so many changes that he is proposing. How do you now bring rafts of changes that to a document that you have completely admitted that you have not read?
He probably did not use the best one. I think he wanted to mean, he maintained that, scientists, some of us, take some time to
understand.
to understand. So probably he has gone through it, but not totally understood.
Yeah, but you make recommendations on a document that you understand what it is all about. But let me tell you, all in all, this BBI report for me is actually the best document. If you look at what we have been addressing, even within the own constitution that we have, when you realize that there are a bit of nitty-gritties that really need to be tightened and be addressed. If you look at what has been happening, for example, one of the biggest wins that this report has produced is strengthening the counties through devolution. The 30% that goes to, the 35% that is proposed in BBI, that basically is an increment or an increase from the 15. And then from that goes to the counties. And then even from that 35%, even now ward reps, now what we are calling these honorable MCAs now, the ward reps now get at least the 5% of that to develop their villages and their cattle dips and the wards and the small roads there. Let me tell you, that is the biggest win for me. Because devolution's intention is to bring resources to the people. We have counties in this country where governors and MCAs do not even see one another. And therefore, the governor basically completely makes it so difficult for a ward rep, for an MCA to do projects. So when it is in law, that out of the 35% that is going to Migori, for example, where I come from, all the 40 wards in Migori County gets a share that is rightfully theirs to do their project. So if, the governor, decides to, close it up for you, you will have money that trickles in for you as a ward rep. Development that is good is development that really is down here. So these funds, for me, the 5%, and really, Honorable Ruto, our deputy president, cannot really come to castigate a document that he has been part of. You saw what the president actually said, that from the consultation,
from the word go,
he has been in this thing. Now, at what point did he really realize that this is not a document for me? And honestly, this is a document for everybody. This is a document for this country.
I really hope that I would get a DP sympathizer in the DJ, because honestly, it looks like now, I really have a biased panel that seems to well, I know you want to defend yourself. Hold it right there. And we officially have, that is the Deputy Governor of Kisii County, Joash Mange. Good to have you, sir, this morning. And of course, I'd love to hear your reservations in regards to the BBI document. I know it was launched in your county, and we had you the other time, and you celebrated the document. By the time we were celebrating or speaking about it, we had not gone through the document. I'd want to believe that you've gone through it. You have a copy, as I can see. Would you agree with some of the recommendations that are being presented by the DP, or he's just trying to be defiant? And why, anyway?
First and foremost, let me apologize.
It's okay.
I
All right. Did you hold it right there? I'm afraid we have to fix your audio some bit. Allow me to come back to Kevin. And yes, Kevin, why do you argue that yes, it's not like you're against the DP? I mean, and I'd love to know the political implications of the same. A person who has interest, in gaining power at some point in time, and you really would tell that his utterances left a bad taste in the mouths of Kenyans yesterday. I don't know whether it's because he did not have, his foot soldiers on ground or what exactly happened. Because, I mean, they were locked out, a majority of them.
Not really. You see, the thing is that, as the DP said, this is, and I think as the DG was also saying, that constitution making is not a one-off. And I think Mheshimiwa Alfred Mutua also made some samples of what other jurisdictions like the US have done. That they keep, amending their constitution almost every other time. And that really is the spirit. But to the extent that people know the foundational premise of the BBI, the handshake, there is no, in fact, that's really what Baba and Mama Pendo were trying to tell us, that we don't have to, no Kenyan has to be killed because of a politician. And since this document was launched, and His Excellency the President said, and he was referring to the DP, said, hata huyu mwenzangu nilimwelezea. So where then did all these things begin to erupt to an extent that the DP has to wake up from his seat to go and tell His Excellency the President? And I don't know what he was saying, but probably was telling him, sasa unanichomelea sana. Why did that have to happen when, of course, there was a task force that was put in place? They met people all over the country, parliamentarians, the executive, and behind both the steering committee report and this task force report, there are names of both individuals, institutions, and organizations that made their recommendations to these committees. The deputy president and his people were not locked. So it would be very unfair for us to be raising these concerns in public rallies, at platforms where we should be the people informing the citizens, not inciting the citizens against the things which they actually see happening. Because when politicians are campaigning, we see the amount of hatred, we see the amount of incitement that takes place. So it really is incumbent upon His Excellency the President, with due respect, to be the gentleman who wants to stand at the foreground to be telling Kenyans the good things about the document and also the bad things and how we can be able to deal with them.
All right,
and that is why for me the platform yesterday was very okay, because then he was able to open up his heart and then say, for me, these are the 4 issues that I have against this document. But I think that the forum was not the appropriate forum, because we have also seen him missing cabinet meetings. We have seen him missing very high level meetings that have been convened by His Excellency the President, which I probably thought as a citizen would be opportunities for him to engage with the President and maybe the former Prime Minister.
But anyway, he opens up about the concerns of very many Kenyans, and that's the truth of the matter. And I think that's what we say, that it should be an inclusive discussion, a robust discussion, like he rightfully puts it. Don't you think then that it was necessary for us to ponder into the key points that he raises, and equally ensure that there's proper civic education towards making the people out there understand this? Because I mean, reality is that, well, there needs to be, it's not just about reading. There needs to be a lot of interpretation that needs to be done revolving around this. So wasn't it just okay for him to come up with this, maybe at the very platform?
Of course, he had quite a raft of recommendations and that could also go into this. But our question was, these recommendations that are coming when the document is being launched could have actually been sorted. And before, and that is why you see we are saying, that's why you see the president calls for this meeting. He is conspicuously absent, and those are meetings that discuss the nitty-gritties. How do we tighten this document, for example, so that before we present it as an institution that is the executive, it is something that is viable. It's something that can be sellable. So those are the issues. He had points. Yeah, of course he had points. Like any other Kenyans, that's why the president say and the prime minister say, we still have, it is not the end. We still have to go out and do civic education. We still have to go out and even persons with disabilities are there, youths are there. And you remember the president said, Wamama, gender and disability. We will still engage you And you know, that is why now, even for us as persons with disabilities of this country, are actually, coming together so that we tighten, the 1, 2, 3 things that we really want it to be, so that we completely, support this document. We are supporting the document, yes, because of the fact that it really touches Kenyans, the normal mwananchi. And normal mwananchi live mashinani. We do not live in Nairobi. And that's why we are saying this fund, the way it has gone mashinani, it is completely okay to strengthen our villages and our wards. Right. Now let's come here. So what we are simply saying, and what personally I'm simply saying, we have an opportunity of engagement as PWDs of this country, as women of this country, as men and youth of this country. So for me, 90% of this report, of BBI report is worth it. Is something that has touched the people, and really it needs a lot of support from Kenyans. So we it's our responsibility as members of parliament, and the deputy governor, as my neighbor.
Yes, let's get to here. All right.
And I hope you give me time to catch up with that.
Is the DG ready, Mr. Director?
Am I ready?
Mr. Director is here. Is the DG ready? All right, yes.
Now I'm ready. Please give me time to catch up with that.
Reconsider it, please.
First and foremost, let me start by agreeing with Madam here, Madam Gatti, that 90% of the Constitution, this document, may be okay. So what happens with the 10% is what the DP was trying to raise yesterday. As I said earlier, constitution making is not a one-off thing. It's a process. And that process began yesterday properly. This is a draft, which we must discuss. Now, if we cow down and shy away, the future generations will be asking us, you mean you didn't see this? You didn't do this? That's what the Deputy President yesterday chose to act as the devil's advocate. First and foremost, let us begin by who was invited to attend yesterday's event. If you look at the people who were invited, majority of them were pro-handshake. Pretty much Kirawaka team. The so-called Tangatanga team was not there.
I heard Honorable Didmas Baraza yesterday in the morning, and he was a bitter man, I'm telling you.
Yeah, because they were not invited.
He says he wasn't.
So the only person who was there to speak on their behalf was the Deputy President. So he chose to go to the stand, Texas stand, and speak what he believes in and what millions of people believe in. Let me not pour cold water on everything that is this document. There are very good things here. For example, the principle that the President has been espousing, the winner-take-all principle, has been very well dealt by this Constitution by the introduction of the leader of opposition position. I've said before that, let us take the example of 2017. Had Raila been nominated to Parliament and be given the leader of opposition position, Constitution protected with the vehicles and everything and the office and the staff, there would have been no need to go for handshake. Because he could have had a platform to control his MPs and keep the government of the day on check. Let us come back to 2022. Let us assume that William Ruto loses in 2022. But he gets to be nominated to Parliament, and he gets all the support to keep the government of the day on check, so that you'll effectively be campaigning for 2027. There will be no need for him to go for handshake, and there will be no need for him to go to the street to fight, because he'll be comfortable. So to that extent, I think this Constitution takes care of that. But what about the side of inclusivity? As the Deputy President was saying yesterday, let us take the example of today. Uhuru is the President, Ruto is the Deputy President, and then he appoints Kimunya as Prime Minister, my brother Angwen as the Deputy Prime Minister, and Mahaka Maole as the second Deputy Prime Minister. Now, what happens to the lawyers? Now, what happens to the Luos? What happens to the Kambas? I mean, you have only gathered for 3 tribes, 4 tribes maybe. But the rest of the 42 tribes have been left out. So this Constitution has not dealt in depth on the issue of inclusivity. And let us, while we may not cover all of it, but the fact remains that it's a glaring omission. But now let's look at the other issues. For example, the 5% allocation of funds to the county is a wonderful, wonderful welcome. We in the devolution family are very excited about it. Getting that 5%, and even the 5% toward development funds. But let us take a step back and ask ourselves, devolution was anchored. The father and the mother of devolution is the Senate. Many proposals were made to make the Senate the upper house to protect this the gains that devolution is making. Because if you take everything to the Assembly, the National Assembly, for some reason the National Assemblers kind of appear to compete with MCS. Because like now we're taking away CDF and giving it to MCS. So they are not happy. Watafinyiria completely. So if we wanted a neutral umpire, we could have let the control of these finances in the Senate. And then we say that tunataka kuweka Bomama, give them power and empower them. And then you take them to a house that has no power. Then what are you doing?
But the argument is that it is not as ugly as it looks in terms of, making the Senate weak. But and you can always come in by the way.
But the ladies, the women reps, right now where they are in the Assembly, they have money.
They have more power.
They have more power. They have a kitty. They participate in the control of consolidated fund. But now you're taking them to the Senate where they have no participation, they have no control. Let us look at another extremely important thing. The issue of judiciary. Worldwide, judiciary is supposed to be independent.
Yes.
But when you put an ombudsman appointed by the president to check the activities of the Supreme Court, to check the president of the Supreme Court, what are you doing? You are actually you're running the judiciary. So these are things that posterity will require, that we must do for the future generations. We must ask these questions. And what the Deputy President was doing yesterday was saying that let's forget about me and Raila Odinga and Uhuru. Let us talk about what will happen in 20, 30 years down the road. He's saying this is a good document. It's the beginning of a conversation. And as we begin conversing, he's saying the majority will have their way. But let the minority have their say.
And are we likely to have this culminating? You want to come in, Honorable Gatti?
Yeah,
before we have Kevin.
I just wanted to say again, as our Deputy Governor here is saying, BBI is basically for prosperity. I mean, we will not be there. I mean, and we are making this thing very beautiful for our children and grandchildren that will come after us. They need to find an environment that is conducive for them to work. But again, on the issue of the Senate and and there was a proposal and most of us seemed to agree, because we actually need to strengthen the Senate. And the Senate just needs to be strengthened, because you can imagine, because again, as you are aware, I mean, women now are going to the Senate. Every county will produce a woman senator and a male senator, as per the which is also very good in terms of, to me, in terms of actually helping us to actualize the gender gap and the 2/3 that we have been grappling with in the National Assembly.
But it's almost like the women rep have been gelled into Senate. And really,
it's really not gelding. I mean, women reps will obviously they'll compete like any other woman. It's not automatic that a woman rep now you move to the Senate automatically. I mean, we have a process of an election and campaign and everything. You will find very many other women who are also coming. So it should actually not even appear that it is the women reps who have been moved to the Senate, because you go through an election process. So women move anyway. Women will go to the Senate anyway from wherever. But again, this Senate, the mandate of the Senate is basically to oversight the counties and the allocations and everything. But now, what is the point of of a Senate that can actually oversight so huge amounts of money that go to even ward reps when the Senate itself? So we support that we actually need to strengthen this Senate, and those are the discussions that we are having. So that
she's agreeing with me.
I am really curious.
There were one or two proposals that were put in place that really, and that's why we are saying we have room for negotiation and renegotiation. I mean, and I'm not saying DP's views will not be taken into account. These are the views that we will obviously be taken into account, and the president basically said, this is a document for you, read this document. He's open to suggestions and proposals, and of course we are aligning ourselves in our various categories of people and diversities of Kenyans to give our input to strengthen the document. What we want to see is 100% support to the BBI document. Of course, even when we were doing the constitution, The constitution, we were not just given the constitution and we approved. We gave a raft of recommendations to strengthen the constitution.
Yes.
And therefore, what I'm simply saying is that the Kenyans have an opportunity to conglomerate, to be together in their various diversities, counties. And you remember, I went to actually 5 regional BBI conferences that we had. I was in Kisii. Mheshimiwa, I was in Kisii.
Yes.
I spoke in Kisii.
Right.
I actually went to Mombasa. I was in Kitui. I was in Narok. You know? And out of the, I think 7, yes. I only missed about 2. Yeah. And in all these forums that we had, we were presenting the views of the people we represent.
Right.
You see, I was also there representing my community when we had the national task force at Lake Regency, where we were giving our views on so many issues. And so Kenyans have an opportunity again, and I'm very sure before, the final, document, honestly, we will have put the nitty-gritties together. We would have tightened the bolts.
Yes.
And therefore, I think...
I am curious, though. I am curious, and I think I want to ask this question.
One or two loose nuts. I mean, honestly, that exists. If Kenyans see that there is a loose nut that needs to be tightened,
yes.
I mean, the president is open. The prime minister is open to this. And that is why you see, even as persons with disabilities, we are also trying to say, what is it that we feel need to come out extremely clearly? And yes. What is it that women need to bring? And obviously, Bomas was not the last option we had.
All right. Well, I don't know. I just do not know how genuine that statement can be. Let's get to hear what Kevin Osido has to say. He is the governance expert. Kevin, we are talking about a constitutional process that allowed us the chance to give our views, yeah? And like Madam Gatti would say, indeed, most of the people were consulted. And I can tell you this, after the report was released, I've spoken to a couple of people, I've spoken to some youths. They say they presented what it is that they wanted, and it was captured in the report. I have spoken to Third Way Alliance, which had Punguza Bizigo, which was countering the BBI. And they speak of, about 8 of the recommendations that they given having been incorporated within the BBI. I've spoken with persons with disability, a majority of them arguing that, yes, some of the presentations that they had have been catered for within the BBI. And as Honorable Gatti would say, 90% of the document is perfect. Really, just how much of a possibility is there for us to have a conversation that will tweak and twist anything that is in this document, honestly.
Linda, thank you so much. This moment that we are having as a country is a historic one. It is historic because if you look at the demographics of this country, it is a time when the youth bulge is actually increasing.
Yeah.
And if you look at the GDP of the country, we are in a limbo. More or less, we move on, positive, negative.
Yeah.
His Excellency the President has an opportunity right now, in the spirit of the willingness of Kenyans to reform what is troubling us.
Yeah.
Now, that can be done in very many ways. He has said he has a Big 4 agenda that it needs to be supported. There are issues with devolution, very serious intergovernmental issues between national government and county governments. We have an opportunity as a people to rectify those things right now. And I'm saying it is right now because it is the only other time when we have a very powerful deputy president who is as ambitious and is actually right in the midst of what is happening. And in the event that God wants him to be the president, this is a legacy that therefore needs to be carried forward. My question is this. Linda, let people read this document, because people have not read this document. Even if you look at the proposal 172A on the Office of the Judiciary Ombudsman, it deals with the issues that are affecting Kenyans' engagement with the judiciary. Not executive, not legislative, not counties. It is about where can Kenyans take their issues regarding a judge, a court, and my desire to seek for justice. In fact, it says, 1, there is established the Office of Judiciary Ombudsman. 2, the President shall nominate, and with the approval of the National Assembly, there is shared power. It is just not about His Excellency the President. Appoint the Judiciary Ombudsman, who shall receive and conduct inquiries into complaints against judges, registrars, magistrates, and other judicial officers and other staff of the judiciary. And it goes on and on, including having issues with the improved transparency, accountability of the judiciary, all the way to sharing these findings back to investigations, any issues pending in court, because Kenyans said, why are our issues taking 22 years in court.
Yeah.
There has to be somebody I can be able to write a letter to and receive a response back. So I want to appeal to Kenyans, take time and read this document. On the issue of the Senate, it is Kenyans who said, we don't understand what the role of a women rep is. And that has also been captured in this document.
Yeah.
And Professor Adam Solo gave a preliminary yesterday. He said, we went to the people and Kenyans said. Now they are saying, instead of giving us people just to go and sit in a house, we are giving you the opportunity to elect them from the grassroots and then send them back to the house to legislate on your behalf. Remember now, Linda, that all these things are happening on the premise of political parties. But if you look at the manner in which politics is done in this country, even the people who own political parties in this country, we know them.
Yeah.
We know how politics is played within the political parties.
Right.
Kenyans will therefore have to wake up very early in the morning and struggle and strive to join these political parties, even to be able to sit at the table where the decisions on who is being nominated to be the woman senator at the Senate is being made.
Okay.
Because this is a privileged position that has been left for only a few people.
Yeah.
But the BBI report is now saying we are trying to empower political parties, including even who will become a majority leader has been scrapped off. But now political parties will have an opportunity to negotiate, because the deputy governor has said what will happen to lawyers, what will happen to Luos, what will any other community, the Pokomo in Hola, the Giriama in the coast and all that. It is a discussion that is taking place at the political party level. And so that means, therefore, that the BBI report is giving Kenyans an opportunity to join political parties, register as a party member, and have a very strong say. So that then, if you do not agree with Denita Gati being nominated as your women rep for Migori County, or your women senator for Migori County, you will have a say at the party level. And the report also says, if you disagree, you don't have to run to the political party's tribunal. You have an opportunity to strengthen your political party and have an alternative dispute resolution mechanism within the party, so that when you go to the Senate, we will be asking you, Linda, we struggled at the political party and the county level to take you to the Senate.
Yes,
why are our interests not being taken care of at the Senate?
Speaking of interest, and of course the president says, or the Right Honorable Raila Odinga, yes, he's the one who said this, let us not talk to each other. Oh, he said, let us talk to each other. Not at each other. Yes. He says the BBI is not about Uhuru becoming Prime Minister and Raila the President. Yes. It is about what is best for the country. Yes. You are on ground. I mean, do not say that, well, people have not yet read the documents, so we really do not have much of reactions on ground. We have had a chance to speak to a couple of people in the country, and Kenyans have their own reservations. The hustler conversation had really gained momentum on the ground. Really, how much then will there be a tweak of the same to get Kenyans into reading this document and understanding this document and making sober decisions that revolve around the document?
You know, when the deputy president said that give Kenyans a chance to read the document, you must understand the context from where it was coming from. What he was saying is, let us not rush this document. See, the people were at yesterday.
Yes, at Bomas
yesterday. As I said earlier, majority of them were Keroka people. So we were saying,
and we'll have Madam Gati explaining that. Yes.
And we say, what we were saying is that involve everybody. Let all of us talk. Kevin has said a very good thing. This is the opportunity. Now, this opportunity is not for a few people, it's for all of us.
Yes.
It's for both Jelaweke and it's for Tangatanga. Now, what the deputy president was saying pretty much reflects the feeling of the Tangatanga side of the divide. We are saying it's okay, this document is okay, it's okay, but before we rush it through, let us be the devil's advocate and ask a few questions so that we can answer them before we move together. He has spoken about the Senate. You know, sometimes let us not over-reinvent things. The traditional role of the Senate in the world over is protecting, for example, in America, the Senate protects states. And the Senate is very powerful because it protects the federalism.
Yeah.
Now, if you remove women from the National Assembly, take them to the Senate, then you take away the responsibility, the traditional responsibility of the Senate, then you are pushing them to a house that is powerless. Now, what is the other traditional role of the Senate worldwide? It feds executive appointments. It also feds judicial appointments. Now, but in Kenya, we want to change it and make it a lower house.
Right.
Then it doesn't make sense. So we are saying, why are we over reinventing things to make the National Assembly happy? So you see, when we talk about things like the Minister of Interior chairing the Police Council, for example, and then the question arises, let us assume, for example, today you have a minister like Matiang'i chairing the police council.
Yeah.
Matiang'i is seriously loyal to the president. So he will not be a need to Ambai.
Okay.
So this is what we are saying. As we look at these things, we must look at the reality of the ground.
But you have to be loyal to the president.
Yes, but you see, institutions like police are meant to be independent, so that if the executive misbehaves, they are able to enforce the law. Now, if you put them directly under the executive, then they will look the other way. So we're doing this for posterity.
Okay.
And as we do this, let me tell you something. Politics is dynamic.
Right.
You see, once you have decided to belong to a certain sector or a certain divide, you choose not to see what is on the other side. People I see the direction Kevin and Gadi said. If you have decided that you sympathize with the pro-handshake, you sympathize with Karaoke, you don't listen to what the other side is saying. But we on the other side, like Clinton once said, that the beauty of Democrats is that while they believe in what they think is right, they leave room that what if we're wrong. They leave room. But the Republicans, once they have decided, they stick to it completely. So we're big Democrats. By saying, even though if I was in America, my persuasion would be more that of the Republican, but I leave room. I say, what if we are wrong? So what the Deputy President was saying yesterday is, what if we get it wrong? Let us be sober. Tuende pole pole. And there are those who are saying that when he went to speak to the president, alienda kumwambia unachoma sana. No. Alienda kumwambia mzee hii maneno Sisi alisema hii kitu tulikuwa ni kuachie uendelee relay. So he was confirming yangu 10 ya Ruto kumbuka. So alikuwa anasema so the president was saying he was reaffirming his commitment of yangu 10 ya Ruto 10. So akasema mimi nilikuwa nakimbia namletea. Sasa Ruto akakimbia kuja kuchukua. So yes. This is very clear. Mimi nilikuwa nakimbia polepole na kuleta ukataa ukakuja kuchukua. Sasa mwambia nimeacha sijui sasa nakojea. And that comic relief to the and you see, I think yesterday all parties behaved very well. The president was presidential. He behaved pretty much like the president that he should be. Courteous to Raila Odinga, courteous to the deputy president, my friend, involved. There's no doubt the Raila we saw yesterday is a statesman. He was very well behaved. He behaved as a statesman. And then the president brought them together. Then Ruto chose to speak on behalf of the millions out there. If you
we want to know why the millions in Tangatanga were not able to be there.
And that is what I can get. But before that, let me finish by saying this. If you listen to what the president finally said, he said all these issues are not handled. Issue number economy. Issue number 2 is what do they use? Those are the 2 things that Ruto, as at the end of the day, the president concurred that all these things we are saying, muhimu zaidi in the economy and the youth agenda. Economy and the youth agenda.
Yeah, but this issue issue of economy has been shared, has been a shared responsibility by all leaders anyway. I mean, about young people in this country. The Deputy President talks about young people. So there are things that they share. Recognizing the fact that youth empowerment said, I mean, a youth population, the dangerous youth.
Yes. It can be
and the president talks about gender, and the Right Honorable Raila Odinga talked about gender and persons with disability. So it really came out very, very clearly that there are issues that they share, common, interest of this country, and that is now how do we build the economy so that our young people are not coming from university. Remember what Atuoli said? Yeah. I mean, we take our children to school to get an education, to be able to come and have a nice, at least look at like you went to university, going into a university and having a degree and coming to tarmac or getting that wheelbarrow. Now, those are short-term measures. What are the structures you are putting in place that a young person can actually spend the whole help at university, 4 years of help, and you come back and find a system that provides you and guarantees, says, you have to be employed. Yeah. Our counties have to develop structures that youth can also get internship. There's a lot of responsibility, and those are the structures that, because let me as persons with disabilities, their interests and rights are better protected by law. Yes. If we have a law and a system that guarantees that young people, 5% in county, for example, need to be absorbed in the county government, or persons with disabilities, 5% in your counties have to be absorbed in what we were saying. How can we that even the CECs in our counties make sure that you guarantee one CEC is a person with disability? That way, life becomes easier for everybody. You better handle your issues right there. And our Deputy Governor Kisii is actually talking about the way the whole issue was organized. Yes. Extremely the best. There was a lot of respect, both from the President, the Prime Minister, and the Deputy President. Yes. And that is what Kenyans want to see. Yeah. We do not want to sit there and we are heckling and
the congregation disappointed. Let's agree.
Because we could see. No, it is the way in which the Deputy President was approaching that. You cannot be in a high-level meeting, some of this cabinet sitting, to be able to present. Now he came in and started presenting as if he's a whole process. You cannot come there and you are there. There's a high-level, dignified meeting like that, and you're coming to start from square one. You see why he has been missing in terms of knowing what needs to be talked about. But anyway, all in all, we actually agreed the views that were given. By the time they were living there, they said engage you, and we are not personally represent the interests of persons with disability for now. But in 2022 we will organize a whole different affair. Because I will definitely offer myself to represent the county of Migori. Okay, I will be there because of the constitution. But we need to address the issues that really affect our people. And the BBI has had, for us, honestly, this is the document. This is the document that if BBI is to address historical injustices, which is it will definitely
TJRC, Kriegler report,
Persons with Disabilities Act, all those things are captured. And then now what we need to do is quickly, because obviously it will come to the House. If we have to amend, we will discuss, we will strengthen the various pieces here, so that we are able to say that during the 12th Parliament, when BBI came to Parliament, you actually brought in this amendment and did so much. So we have a document as Kenyans. Honestly, we need to just negotiate, and we need to discuss what is in it for my people, and everybody gets a share. That's why it's got talks about it.
Well, as you come in, I know you have some reactions that you'd want to present. But equally, I'll ask this. You've heard the members of for that matter argue that these two that thing cannot even work 101%. And now that is all about affirmative action within the BBI. It's all about persons with disability. Really, just how much of an interest would they be with these clauses that protect these people?
That is a very high priority issue. In fact, if you go to page 116 of the report, where it talks about inclusivity, implementation of the two-thirds gender rule at all levels, not just at national government, national level, but it's referring to all government, all levels of decision making, which is now why a deputy governor for Kisii, Nyamira or Kisumu or wherever, Nairobi, when a governor is a lady, the deputy will be a man, and vice versa.
Right.
It talks about issues of commissions. Who will be chairing commissions? If the chair is a man, the vice has to be a woman. For me, the most important thing is, as we talk about these positions, why do Kenyans feel that we must talk about two-thirds gender? Let's stop looking at it from the level of just representation. Let's take it to how I get food to my table. That when I am seated at my ward development fund level, as a woman from a marginal or Mandera or somewhere in Bucha, I can be able to reach out to the decision maker and ensure that my voice is made to count in those decisions. If I am a man who lives in a clan where women have been so empowered and so the boy child is looking deprived, I should feel confident to reach out without necessarily looking at my deputy governor, who is such a high level person, or my women rep, who is such a high level person, but that inclusivity is going to be an inclusivity that will be able to give me an opportunity to speak out my mind and ensure that this mind I'm speaking is actually is dealing with the issue, my need. And for the needs of most Kenyans is not who becomes president. It is about what I get when I can be able to relate with the presidency. And that is why the Kikuyus will feel we must be. That is why the Kalenjins, for example, now will say it has to be us. That is why the Luos of Babatinga are not being recognized here. And so in Baba, and you had people saying, this is the only man who can call for a public holiday, when actually it is a working day. Why are we not part of this process? But if we can be able to ensure that inclusivity works at the level of where an MCA calls for, whether they are for county integrated development planning or annual development planning processes, and people are there, 500 or 200 or 1,000 that they'll be able to get, but it is because they feel included in the process. And so issues which even talk about how these meetings are supposed to be organized at that particular level to ensure that people are actually included. But I agree with the voices that are saying that the document has not dealt very effectively with political inclusivity. But that's at the 5 positions. So let's try and imagine that we can be able to join those political parties and even advise and recommend 5 positions can be filled. Because let's look at it this way. Even if your grandfather is a prime minister, of course we know that you can get 10 things, but how about your neighbors? As opposed to when you actually make a decision at that local level, and so you are put together in an area where when a road is being built for everyone, as opposed to where that an elected leader will only put a road because of his or her own interest. That I think is part of what we're seeking to deal with, because if we don't deal with political inclusivity, then even all these issues about the good things and about socioeconomic rights and it not to be met, because it is the same people who sit at those very high level political positions who will make the laws. All these amendments that have been proposed by the BBI report will actually be done at 2 levels, or at the National Assembly, most likely at the National Assembly where those laws are made. But I think for me is to ask Kenyans to take time to read this document, because for instance, so that as we move on, there is a Kenya Police Council. This thing also, in my view, has no issues, because it says there is established Kenya Police Council, which shall consist of the Cabinet Secretary responsible for internal security, who is the chairperson at that, and move on to how the cabinet will be formed. The BBI has proposed that cabinet ministers, actually National Assembly cabinet ministers will as well be.
Yes.
So this means that even if you have as a powerful cabinet minister, now be called cabinet secretary, now they'll be called, who will be so powerful to be making arbitrary decisions at the police council.
Yeah.
The MPs will have the right and the power to summon this person as a colleague and ask him or her, Bona Matiang'i, if I could use that. There is also the checks and balance institutions that have been proposed by the BBI report to just do things arbitrarily and make decisions which do not benefit the people. Then we expect that as a colleague in the National Assembly, you will be level. And the BBI committee also said that that is what Kenyans said.
Yes.
That from, and I think it was the people, and people like MP for Garissa, is it Adan Duale? When they appeared at the BBI, I was actually present, and they said sometimes in the House, we find different cabinet secretaries. We have issues in agriculture.
And
the CS for agriculture is in Meru. How do we deal with this person as agriculture? And so I think that the BBI report has given a lot of regard to the sovereignty of the people. How then we get to me is the biggest concern, because we also don't want to elect people who will not do what Kenyans are seeking in a document.
Okay, let's take a look at some of yesterday. And these from different leaders. Of course, Baba, that yes, the road is on to redemption. Dr. Alfred Mutua says, unfortunately, the DP, that is William Ruto, has misled Wananchi on the East and their power. He needs to read the Senate will have more powers to deal with the county money. Powers has been removed. It is a game to play politics, to derail and divide. And we also have this one from Senator Ladama Olekina, who says the BBI report proposes a weak Senate, unnecessary political positions. The task force ignores Maasai Nation as well as other marginalized communities. I encourage everyone to read the report, tafadhali. BBI constitutional amendment 2020 is very good for presidential candidates, especially the front runners, but very bad for stability of the country. It creates impossible executive and expansive. In the end, politicians gain. Senator Murkomen again says, this platform was designed for building bridges, and it turned out and became a heckling environment where that were not accommodated. Just what was the process of inviting legislators and members of the Senate? Let's speak about that.
It's a process. This is a national discourse. Yeah. I mean, BBI was a national discourse, and obviously, in situations of national discourses, their invitation. I mean, every Kenyan knew that BBI was happening in Bomas, and members of parliament were invited.
Did you receive a special invitation to this?
I mean, members of parliament were invited. There were cards.
That is not true. There were cards given out.
There were cards, yes.
There were cards given. I got a card.
Yes.
You could not go there without a card.
But now, you want to tell me that the deputy governor got a card when an MP also did not receive? Did they not attend?
I got a card
And parliament, we had cards in parliament. And so from the speaker, every member of parliament was invited to Bomas, and I honestly I was also even surprised why the Tanga team was not at Bomas, because this is a national issue, a national discourse.
They did have invitations.
And you believe you are.
They did not.
I mean, honestly,
why would Honorable Didmus Baraza, in his own sane mind, on national television argue that he did not receive it?
He didn't.
I even suspect probably they just did not want it. Probably they say that the gang that they say they do not want. And there's no way the deputy president could actually be at Bomas when his troops are not in Bomas. Why did the deputy president mobilize his troops?
You can always come in, Kevin. You can always say
you see.
Honestly.
And I agree with the good friend Anita is saying, and also Mheshimiwa DG. When you're putting together a list to a very special function, even in the village where I come from, you look at that very draft
and shoot it
and avoid it.
Not necessarily, and you say at what level do I put this brother of mine? Yeah,
exactly.
Wait. And you probably did not look at Mheshimiwa Kipchumba's tweets just before the event.
Yes.
Because I think Abdi Nasir Mohammed asked him,
yes,
is your friend the DP invited?
Okay.
So it means that even when Kipchumba Murkomen did not know that the DP was in. Number two, look at the span of things received in Kisii.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah, and it's not more than 4 days. A national event is happening in between our weekend.
On 21st.
On 21st, yeah. A national event is happening. Hata kama ni wewe utafanyaje? It has to be my personal responsibility. Like Kevin, I took personal responsibility and spoke to Professor Adams.
Yes.
And told him, I have a team of people who appeared before you many times and they want to attend the process.
All right.
Can we please get invitation cards? And relate to Bomas. Now, if I can get a card, there is no reason should not get a card. Yesterday, and he accessed Bomas and he sat and all through the deliberations. Then he walked out and said, I forced myself, I attended. And he was there with people and he's captured and he's speaking.
Yeah.
There is no way you can force yourself into a presidential function. It cannot happen.
Thank you.
If you are
so
not wanted,
if you don't have
just
an
a minute,
invitation, you can't go there.
No, I've said two things. I have said one is a personal responsibility that I want to attend, and if the Parliamentary Service Commission is accessing cards and giving it to MPs, you are an MP, ask for a card from your institution. If you don't ask for it, why should you be given a card?
Let's be realistic. These are members of parliament. These are members of the Senate. There is a limited number to Bomas.
It was 6,000.
So within this particular limited number, don't you think it would have almost been obvious for this incorporated without them having to go to that extra mile of saying that, you know what?
As the DG said, access Bomas without a card. In fact, right from the gate, you go in, you show your card, and then you are allowed in. You know temperature, then you go in. Okay. So even when you get in,
Moses Kuria, who was being chased away from some BBI, was it him again?
So the thing is, Linda, I don't think it is fair of our blame the planners of this process, given the looking together, especially a function where Mheshimiwa Raila Odinga, who will walk in with everybody, because his car will come in and people will want to jump there. Honorable members just need to act honorably. We respect them. We appreciate the work they are doing to us as people that they represent by virtue of sovereignty. But I think this was a process that really is supposed to include everyone.
How easy is it for one to sell inclusivity when you're talking about a scenario where some of them are not there, and evidently, you know, the world was to see whether they are going to be in attendance, waiting to listen to what Deputy President William Ruto is going to say in regards to this. So, if you're talking about unifying the country, I mean, is it not the same spirit that pushed
Ruto and
Raila? Wouldn't they organize the repercussions of these members of parliament?
Linda.
Okay. Let me tell you. I am really.
You know, before she says that, before she said, let me ask you.
Yes,
my
please.
brother.
Yes.
You have a way to get a card for my friend, the first chairman, Adam Solo, a very close friend of mine. When we were in college together.
Yes.
You are a private citizen.
Yes.
You can out do one solicit for a card from the chairman.
No, I didn't solicit.
You say?
No, I said.
Just a minute, finish.
I said
members of parliament who
I reached out to the vice chair.
Said you
had with other team members and said we want to come to both cards.
Can I finish?
That was my word.
No, can I finish? Potato. Now let me ask you. So Parliament, you're calling for cards.
No, I said
that is not fair.
Remember,
if they wanted the members of Parliament to attend,
Linda, with due respect, I said, refer to Parliamentary Service Commission. If PSC, because you are said from Council of Governors, that was recognized by the planners.
Yes.
Planners, okay, how did you get your card? If it was institution of or parliament, these are people who belong to either parties or parliament.
Exactly. And that's why I said this was a national discourse. Okay. And national discourse, members of parliament are usually, you know, we had, obviously, we are,
exactly.
You know, those are the structures. Yeah. And, you know, that's what I'm surprised, because for me, this was an organ, kind of, let me school for Zangatanga how to attend. Because we were not understanding why we got cards, they did not cards. We got cards from our pigeonhole, we got cards from our whip, we got, so this being a national national event, members of parliament who are national, it is usually obvious that you have to go an extra way of getting your card to attend. Honestly, do you have to come and be whipped to attend and and it had been organized?
We are not given cards.
Right?
Okay, they were not, Linda. We don't have the benefit of knowledge or none of them is here.
Right. Allow me to say this. Number one, what Kevin has said about neutrality of police is very important. Extremely important. Extremely important. Yeah. You see, there must be realistic too. Number one, you read this document from page we have read it. I also read it. It is very genuine for the governor of Machakos, Mutua, has been strengthened. Yeah. Even Gati agrees that the Senate has been downgraded. You should stop playing to the gallery. True. You let him not stop playing to the gallery. Okay. The Senate has been downgraded. And the general practice that the Senate should. Number two,
what makes it the need going to the Senate now?
The need for effective is a good thing. Yeah. And this document did very well. The need for independent judiciary is no principle in non-developed. You cannot have an independent judiciary, then you have somebody else kind of oversighting it, other than the leader of the judiciary. Now, the other thing that is extremely important is, which my brother said, the need for a neutral police.
Which I should have given you a paper. I am worried about your
document. Need for a neutral police. Thank you. Right now, I said that if you have an overzealous minister, and I like time round, the minister will be a member who has been subjected to election, and therefore who understand the rigors of politics. Now, if you have a minister who has not been subjected to election, serious in his loyalty to the point, not care about procedures. I am a victim of this. I have a contrary opinion to what the minister thinks I should have been holding, and guess what happened to me? I do not have security as we speak here today. My security was withdrawn because all are separate, a different opinion from what I should be holding. And in fact, I'm in the process of going to court to get my security instead. We have to do this because of an overzealous minister who does not care about the opinions may be divergent. Paradigmatics is about conversation. The shoe will be on this side, the shoe will be on the other leg. Be careful what you wish for. One of the cardinal principles in constitution making, as you prepare the constitution document, your worst enemy being the president. Think about your worst enemy being the person going to implement that document. How will it affect you? Do not think about yourself as being the president and therefore be able to do ABCD. After you are satisfied that as the ABCD, ask yourself, what if the president, what will he do to me? So as we prepare this document, be cognizant of the fact that there will be paradigm shifts.
And Kevin is a governance expert, and I think I would want to, in a way, in form of a question, and reality happening more so in African democracies where we're talking about some leaders concocting some without knowing, thinking that this is going to work. To our neighbor Uganda at some point in time, they've been talking about the age, the term limits and all that. All this, it's so good to the leaders that were trying to front for the same. Today, Museveni, and they say, you know what, we need to introduce this age limit. And, in real sense, there are a couple of other issues that we can cite where leaders have for liberation pushed for, but then technically we would cite that in that, yes, the very same leaders who supported are talking of a different thing about the 2010 constitution. Not to say it is bad, but they argue that there are some things that we really need to change. And in respect of the dynamism of any constitution, as he raises this, the DP be cautious of who is going to be who is going to be there tomorrow.
What stand from a governance perspective is governance is about posterity. It is never about personality. It's never about personality happen. And that is why even in our constitution we envision certain things that the president can run mad, he can go in bankrupt, he can pass on, God forbid, many things can happen. So when we are putting together institutions, when we talk about governance, therefore, we talk about certain things which include systems. Now, part of the systems in place are things like constitutions. Constitutions don't just rest by word of it in terms of black and white. We move about legislation. So we give it life to run. To be very wary about is checks and balances. If we are putting in place, we put in place effective laws to be and balances. And that is why Mangi is raising a very important issue, which needs to be interrogated further. So much such that institutions and personalities within institutions, from a governance perspective, should not use these institutions for either personal gain, personal vendetta, or personal interest. In fact, for me, from people like the ones who withdrew his security, need to begin to ask themselves, how do we get back his security? In the affiliation, the DP showing up there and going to pat the president's back. I still don't know what he was saying. But I mean, I need to see that also happening. The people like the PS Interior, because I think a lot of people have really implicated in very negative CS Interior. I also think that Tanga people are very negatively. I have no facts to TV and what we read on newspapers. Yeah, but I'm just saying it, that particular issue, and he has raised it. A perspective, I think that we also need to have a conversation that is not hypocritical to either of the sides. But if I would actually change all this conversation now to suit my own interests and say, now begin to demand that you restore whatever thing else that has been taken, which I think should present apologies. When the president apologizes on behalf of all Kenyans, it means he's doing it for every other person who has done certain mistakes to certain individuals. To your question is just to insist on the fact that when individuals are put in spaces of governance and leadership, remember that tomorrow you will not be there. For the best interest of so you try to make it very easy. You try to make it for posterity. Because tomorrow it could be your son. Tomorrow it could be the person to infringe. So much like that when we talk about it, we need to look at 5 years from now. Where will we be when Raila is not there in governance, when Ruto, the Mudavadis, all these people are not there. And it is about these young people who are asking for jobs. Tomorrow they use Singapore way and say we now want, what has been taken away from us over this generation. Like Dr. Lee Kuan Yew and a dictator who wants to ensure that the youth go to school and get direct into jobs. But you see, today we are not putting those kind of systems to safeguard the kind of posterity that we are looking for. So I think it's important, therefore, that even as Kenya and other jurisdictions, Uganda, Congo, DRC, among several others, even the US, we also need to ensure that governance its context, which is what so that people from Lake Region can have their own Lake Region economic bloc, put together governance systems that work. What works in Coast will not work in Mount Kenya. What works in Mount Kenya will also not work, but even what works in North Rift will work in South Rift. So that then governance is supposed to be seen as that gives everyone an opportunity to discount and also to benefit from locally available resources.
All right, we have about 5 minutes or so to wind up the conference, and one to you, Madam Gati. While it sounded like it was comical for Baba to stand and say, should charge they promised. I mean, there are very many people who forgotten the importance of the governance, of the government that we have today, what it is that the government is supposed to deliver. And they all channel their, minds on, I don't want to call it a crucial document that we are discussing today. I mean, the Jubilee government has to speak, or any other Kenyan will tell you, scenario on ground. What will it do to redeem itself? What will it indeed? It was a government for the people. Delving deep into the BBI and forgetting its core mandate.
Yeah, but Linda, Raila was right.
Yes.
I mean, the Jubilee government,
yes.
And it has a responsibility to work and to deliver to the people, because they had their manifesto, and whatever happened along the way, and Baba wasn't there. The Jubilee government was mandated to do and to deliver to the Kenyans. It is the responsibility of Jubilee to deliver. We will meet Hukombele because Baba is not in government. So obviously, like any other Kenyan, he actually mandates the Jubilee government to deliver to Kenyans. And that is why we're saying the Jubilee government failed the moment, the two principles. And that's why you see the deputy president coming to actually lament in obviously it must have seen this for quite a long time, and that is not a recipe for success. When a EP does not attend a cabinet meeting chaired by the president, his boss, then what? And that's why Kenyans were bitter at Bomas, but they wanted to tell Ruto, really, you have gone the wrong way. You didn't go the relay way. As the president said, you took your other about time. And you started going that way. Now, how do you what? That's not in parliament. And if at all, then we will be able to hold, like Baba or like whoever else will be there, because right now he has no budget. All the government accountable.
Yes.
And Kenyans must know this. So saying, if I was there, I would be able to not be in government, and you are expecting Baba to come and not having a budget, resources to help him do that job. So we are looking for ways in which we can make. Every time we have an issue in this country, people are saying, where is Baba when he has no budget to facilitate things that when we were in parliament, and you can see the reason why we are bringing CS and us to parliament now is for us to be able, members of parliament, to be able to solve their questions. And sometimes you call a cabinet secretary, and he takes like a whole month before answer a question that your people need. It will be very, very easy for people to work. Linda, allow me to really quickly just ask for me, because I represent persons with disabilities, and I can just finish. I want to urge persons with disabilities, because and this inclusivity does not work without persons with disabilities.
Right.
Persons with disabilities have been so discriminated. I want to urge part in politics. I want to urge persons with disabilities to actually offer themselves to positions as they are created.
Right.
I mean, who tells you that a deputy governor cannot be a person with disability?